the Danvers Conservation Commission meeting for January the 12th, 2023. Happy New Year to everybody. We operate under the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After each applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address before you speak. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, property owners, and project applicants. We also request that you confine your questions to the project and only as it pertains to the Wetlands Act. We cannot handle, nor do we have jurisdiction regarding such things as noise or traffic. All problems not related to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw must be taken up with the other appropriate boards. Moving ahead, we'll have a roll call. Peter Wilson is present. Vanessa Curran? I see her name up there. Thank you.
Vanessa's present, but DCAT's having an
Ann
issue.
McGill?
Oh, they can
He's
hear me.
out sick.
So Ann is not joining us at all then, right?
No.
And Michael Splain?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have a problem, Georgia?
She said she texted me and said she couldn't hear Peter.
I can hear now.
Okay, yay. Sorry about that.
Okay, we're all set?
Thank you, Ethan.
Okay,
You're
the
all
first article on our agenda is a notice of intent, 24 Princeton Street, DEP file number 14-1392. The applicant, John and Jane McGurk. The applicants have asked to continue their hearing until our January 26th meeting. So if someone could make a motion, we will continue until that date.
I move to continue the notice of intent for 24 Princeton Street to our next scheduled meeting.
Is there a second?
She here?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next up is an order of conditions, a permit extension for 13 Mead Street. For 13 Mead Street, DEP file number 14-1317. Georgia, could you just give us a little background on this, please?
Yes. Kim, do you mind muting yourself? I think we're getting a little feedback just while we're speaking. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yes, so this applicant is asking for an extension to the order of conditions. The order was issued in January of 2020, and after that, they have completed a majority portion of the project, which is the home. The garage remains to be done. The commission hasn't seen many of these, but because of COVID and the pandemic, the state created what we call a state of emergency and a tolling period for permits that expired during COVID. They were also extended an amount of time on the back end. So this permit was eligible for that, which extended the permit to April of 23. Now, under our regular orders, we allow a one-time extension. We've updated that fee to $500, which the applicants paid for this. And with the COVID extension and then just the regular, that would afford them till April 2024. I've confirmed with the building inspector that the work for the house was done. They issued an occupancy permit. They have no issues. And they, too, would like to see the garage work done, knowing the foundation is in. But I think Kim knows better about what's left to do.
Okay, thanks.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm sorry, did you want me to speak, Georgia?
Yes, I was going to say, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure, no, I think Georgia did a great job summarizing the project. As you can imagine, in the beginning of COVID, we had trouble getting a builder, and the supply chain issues and the increase in cost of all the materials have really waylaid the project along the way. So the house is complete. We have a certificate of occupancy. My family is living in the home, as you can see behind me. All the prep work for the garage is done. The foundation is poured. The the walls that are up that are going to connect the house to the garage are all set to go once the garage is built. It'll be a 2-car garage with a family room above. So we're just looking for a little bit more time to get the resources in place to be able to finish the project.
Okay, good, thanks. So this seems to me pretty straightforward, right? We're just, 1-year extension, and then, so if we do grant this, you would have to have work completed and be back here for a certificate of completion by April 18th, 2024, so 15 months or so from now.
I don't see a
Correct.
problem with it. They only got their order of conditions last January, really, and with the pandemic, and I know there's been problems with getting work, getting contractors. I think we should do it.
Right. Okay, any other questions, Mike?
I'm wondering, is this a public hearing that's gonna require input from the public? and a vote?
It does not require input, but if you want to offer it, that's up to the chair.
Sure, why not? Okay, Mike, it was 2020, the first one was a typo.
Oh, that's a
So
typo?
that's why it's, yeah, that's
Oh,
why
well,
it's,
I take
3
that
years.
back. It says 22.
yeah.
That was the issue.
It's 20, right?
Okay,
All right. Even so, I still agree.
Vanessa, do you have any questions or comments?
I was going to ask the question about the date. If it was issued in '22, it should be good till '25, so I was confused about that. But thanks for clarifying that it was a typo, that it was actually January 2020. So that makes a lot more sense, and I think this is fine.
Oh, I see it on the
Okay.
revised one.
All
I
right,
see
good.
that.
If there's no other questions from the board, is there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none. Mike, someone want to make a motion? Or we-
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we grant an extension which would expire on April 18th, 2024, to allow the applicant to finish the garage work.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good luck. We'll see you next year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Georgia, thank you for all your help.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next up is notice of intent for 6, 8, and 8R Greenleaf Drive, 7 and 9 College Pond Drive, 15 Lobeo Drive, 40 Summer Street, DEP file number 14-1394. The applicants are the Town of Danvers Engineering Division.
Hi, good evening, Chair, thank you. Stephen King, Town Engineer for the Danvers Department of Public Works. I'm here to represent the town for the notice of intent filed for the Greenleaf sewer pump station replacement project. The project was, we did our site walk December 11th, so I thank everyone who was able to attend the site walk and bear the cold weather. I think we were able to discuss a lot of the items that were addressed in the first hearing, and we're here obviously to answer any further questions or concerns that the commission or the public may have about the project.
All right, the first one, Steve, just could you just go into a little detail about alternative routes that you studied and the reason why you chose not to use those?
Sure. So we had our original alternative that we are preferring to go is through the College Pond easement, which you can see it up on the map. That's on the projector right here, which basically takes a sewer easement from Greenleaf Drive to College Pond Road. The alternative option was to go by gravity out from Greenleaf Drive to Summer Street, then go back down College Pond Road, obviously tripling the amount of gravity sewer main that was required in order to make that connection back down towards the College Pond where we could connect it by gravity. And obviously the last option would obviously be to try and replace the existing pump station, which is currently adjacent to the wetlands.
Okay, Mike, any questions?
Yeah, well, just maybe questions or comments. So the least disruptive would be to replace the existing unit, right?
I would say equally the disruptive would both be replacing the pump station where it is today and also the Greenleaf sewer construction.
Are the
through
most
gravity.
disruptive?
Are the least disruptive.
Least disruptive, right.
Yes.
And the reason we're not doing the pump house, would you just remind me of that?
Sure, the pump station has a very limited lifespan. Typically, you may get 20 to 30 years before you're going in and have to do a major replacement on the project again. Therefore, us coming back and filing another notice of intent. What we aim to do with the gravity sewer main, do this one filing, install the gravity sewer main, and then we're projected to have a 100-year lifespan on that pipe where we don't have to do any further improvements on it.
And the cost is a lot more, of course.
The cost is similar in stature for both,
It is?
either doing the replacement of the pump station or the gravity sewer main.
And then I had a question, probably it's better for, to ask Georgia was, Georgia, when we talk about limited projects, and I was trying to look at this definition and I didn't quite get it. It said, limited projects are labeled as such due to how limited they are applied for, limitedly. What was that supposed to mean now?
So for example, the commission typically sees single-family home additions, maybe small stream crossings, those types of projects. Very rarely do you, as a conservation commission, see landfill capping projects, solar arrays, sewer replacement projects. So it's limited in that it happens limitedly. It rarely occurs in that.
So it's really, it's the frequency.
The frequency and also the use is mostly associated with either state-run projects or projects to advance something that either benefits the greater good, like sewer, solar, transportation access.
And it could be a lot of work, a very
Yes.
big project.
Exactly.
And it could still be defined as limited
Exactly.
for purposes of this.
And because those happen so rarely, I'll now say, the Wetlands Protection Act says, hey, if someone is doing this, because it happens so rarely, we're going to apply these types of rules and these types of standards, which are different than what we usually would.
Okay, and with regards to the 4 criteria, one being the Concom may require alternative routes, that's prior to this project beginning. Obviously, we were not going to, in midstream, say we want to go a different route. I mean,
If that's what you guys,
That
if
could
that's what the
happen?
commission feels, for example, if you felt it made more sense to go through the College Pond route and address the concern 10 years down the line, or let it progress to a worse state than it is now, and,
well, if
you
they
know.
hit a snag and had to change something, is that possible, Steve?
Could you define what a snag?
Well, I
Might
mean,
be.
if you say, oh, this, we
With
can't get the
ledge.
grade, or we have to do
Yeah.
something that would,
It would have to be a very extensive change in plans, which we've done our due diligence, CDM Smith and us, as far as the survey, the geotechnical work, the layout, walking the path multiple times, that we feel confident enough that we can obtain and install that sewer main through that project. Any major change would have to be something of a historical nature for us not to do the
Yeah.
project.
so
Yeah.
I'm really, yes.
Right. My name's Dave Burnett from CDM Smith. I'll be the engineer of record for the project. We have done an alternative analysis on the project, and that was included in the NOI. I think it's far more likely that we'd hit a snag or unexpected conditions if we went the Summer Street to College
A
Pond
long
route.
way.
Right, because as far as sewer installation goes, this is about as straightforward as it can get because it's through the woods. It's rocks and trees and things. It's not other utilities or abandoned gas mains or things that would happen in a public right-of-way that we don't have any control over. So we're confident that we can execute this route.
Yeah, so seeing these projects like the solar array, that was sort of in the woods. It's not that disruptive. And the other one at the transfer station that we've talked about, they really, they don't disrupt people's lives, so to speak.
Yeah, they're not
and
major.
I see them limited maybe that way more, that they impact that way. One other question, I'm just curious, how long did that existing pump last? Well, up until counting today?
It was originally installed in the late 1970s.
70s?
Yeah.
So over 50 years?
Yeah.
Well, let's,
They don't make them like they used to.
what's that?
They don't make them like they used to.
They don't make them that. Oh, all right. So wouldn't an argument be made just to say, well, let's put another one in for another 50 years?
I think cost-benefit analysis and looking at long terms, if we're looking to spend the same amount of funds, that it'd be worth the town's investment to spend it so that the project, the lifetime of the asset will last over 100 years. Not
Can we
just
get a better system?
get a better system, exactly.
The gravity
Okay,
is a
I
much
just
more-
wanted to ask the questions
Yeah,
to sort of
absolutely.
bring all that out, you
Yep.
know?
Sorry, what did,
Sure,
Gravity is a much more reliable system, so mechanical things can fail at any point in time, and although it is redundant, currently the pump station is operating on a single pump because the main one already failed, and that's why it's so prioritized for replacement.
Good point.
Gravity's not going to fail.
One other
for
thing
sure.
then. You have a 16-foot easement on either side of the run. And there's some ability to take trees down when they get to a certain size. Is someone going to monitor that, or is it going to end up with all these huge trees creating problems? In other words, who's going to go out and measure trees at chest height and say, we got to start clearing these trees?
Typically, that would be a conversation that we'd have with the on-site contractor, Georgia, and myself, that we'd be able to go out there and assess what trees really need to come down in order to pursue the project. Or
Who would do that work? Would the town do that work?
the town would oversee the work along with CDM Smith, our engineer, but really it'd be a contractor hiring out a example, any tree company to come in that's equipped to do that type of work and take those trees down. They would come in and do the site walk and then do the tree cutting and clearing.
Are you talking during construction or down the line?
No, down the line,
Down the line.
after it's done and the trees, I assume you anticipate, everything's gonna grow back.
Yeah, we do anticipate a few trees coming back. We would have to just assess how far the root system goes, but we'd be able to monitor that on a basis with our daily sewer inspectors.
That's all I have, thank you.
okay. Vanessa, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask about if there's a staging area or construction entrance, or what's the logistics for getting the work done?
Sure, I can take that. So typically the sewer is constructed from the most downstream end first, just because it's easier to hit the minimum slope that way. So it'll be starting on the College Pond Road. We're anticipating bringing in most of the construction equipment through the address on Summer Street's driveway, kind of in the middle, because that will also minimize the disruption to the local residents and keep the equipment as far away from them as possible. However, there will be some times, obviously, when we have to enter through College Pond Road or through Greenleaf Drive, just because that makes the most sense.
Okay, and can you talk a little bit about erosion control?
Danielle's on the line. She might be able to best address that.
Yeah,
What page?
do you
Hi,
want,
yes, sorry. So I'm on Zoom. Yes, so on
Danielle,
the,
just
on the plan that we're,
introduce yourself.
hi, I'm Danielle Gallant with CDM Smith. I'm the professional wetland scientist on this project. I completed the notice of intent that we're discussing tonight. So on the plans that were submitted with the notice, you'll see that there is a line of erosion control. We have silt sock and staked silt fence proposed along the entire route to keep any issues with erosion and sedimentation into the wetlands or adjacent resource areas, from happening. And then
Okay, thank you.
also to note that we also have it proposed at the location where we are replicating the wetlands over at the Smith School.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have, Peter.
That's all you have, Vanessa?
I did have one more
Yes.
follow-up.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, sorry. On the resource areas that are being altered or filled, I know one is 573 square feet, that will be replicated at a ratio of 1.57 to 1. And then there's a 3,223 cubic feet of bordering land subject to flooding. And how does that get replicated? Is that for you to answer, Georgia? Or?
I'll pass it to Danielle or David first.
All right,
and
yeah.
they
How
may
does
be
that
more
get
familiar with
replicated?
the-
Hi, I'll speak to that.
Okay.
Hi. Sure. So the bordering land subject to flooding is a 1-to-1 ratio, and we have proposed,
I'm sorry, what's the ratio
Three.
on that?
it's 1-to-1.
1 to 1?
Yep, 1-to-1, and it needs to be within the same general area that you're taking away the floodplain. So we have proposed it within the same site, and we're proposing 3,237 cubic feet. So it's actually a, it's a
Couple
minimal,
feet
but it's
more.
still about 14 feet, cubic feet more of floodplain.
Is that satisfactory for 1 to 1 on that?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, that was, sorry to.
Okay, not a
interject.
problem. Okay, when do you anticipate beginning construction?
We anticipate beginning the construction in the fall of this year.
And how is this project being funded?
So the funds have already been appropriated through town meeting.
It's an appropriation, it's not out of the water and sewer,
Under the water and sewer, yep.
but it is a town meeting vote that is required?
It was, yeah, in 2021, we appropriated the funding for the project, the construction of the project, 2020,
They have the
2021.
money.
So we have the money already in place.
All right, the wetland soils that you're removing from the project area, are those going up to Smith School for the replication?
Are you reusing the same soils?
Hi, I'll speak to that. So we'll do our best based on time of year for both the season of the pool and also the school to time the construction of the wetland replication out. We'll have to time it so that the wetland construction, the construction for the sewer at the wetland area where we are disrupting the BBW will occur before the Smith School replication. So I think there was a time of year issue with the pool, correct, Steve? We were
That's-
trying to stay.
Trying to stay
Yeah,
outside
so
the
we'll have-
normal work hours of the pool in the summertime.
Yeah, so we want to try and make sure that we can organize the work as such, and then also we want to, David, is that on the end where we want to start construction, the wetland?
It's on the opposite end. So
It's
it's
on
on
the
the
opposite end.
upstream end.
Okay. So I think what we can do is we can talk to the contractor, see what the best way to go about timing that is. And I think that we were also, Steve, going to reach out to the school and see if we wanted to talk to them about whether or not they'd be interested in having this done during the school year and during the school day.
Yes, we
If
are.
they would be interested in seeing that.
Georgia has been in contact, and myself with the
Okay.
principal at the high school.
As a teaching moment?
Both as a teaching moment and just accessibility, are we allowed to be working while they're in school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's kind of a lot of balls in the air with that.
I
So
will note the
we'll do our
principal-
very best.
I will note the principal had no issue, and she said, "Sounds great, keep us updated," but she had no immediate concerns
Okay,
about
good.
work happening during this.
How long do you think the construction will take?
Overall, best guess is to throw out dates really, but I would say overall we're looking at probably 6 months worth of construction, depending on when we finish
That
and
would
when
get
we
you
go
into the
back and
winter?
seed.
That would get you into the winter then? Is that a problem?
There might have to be a winter shutdown, so we come back in the spring and do our final restoration with lawns and irrigation lines and do our final cleanup. And then we'd obviously have to do our final paving on Greenleaf and also on College Pond. So we'd want to wait till the summertime to do that work.
Okay. And who is set up to monitor the replication of the wetlands to make sure that the new wetlands takes?
So we're including in our specifications that the contractor has to hire a certified and licensed wetland specialist to monitor that. And then I'm guessing that the town will also have a resident engineer on site throughout construction to monitor everything as a whole.
Okay.
Who would that, we have a resident engineer that would do that?
That would be me.
That would be you, wouldn't it?
Steve, if you wanted to sub it out, I know a company.
Okay, I think that's pretty much what I have for questions.
I don't have any more questions.
Is there anyone from the public want to make a comment, or, ooh, two of them? Bill, why don't you start walking over in the meantime?
Oh, hey.
Good evening. John Bowner, 10 Greenleaf Drive. I'm also the president of the Oak Knoll Pool, which has been mentioned tonight. I want to thank the town for setting up the site walk. I think everybody was able to really get a good feel for the area over there, although I think it was the coldest day we've had this winter.
Yeah.
My concerns have mostly been answered through the process, and I think Stephen King's been great, along with the engineering firm, to lay out all the details of this. However, I think there's a couple things I just want to make sure, and from what I understand in speaking with Georgia, that your acceptance of this project can have conditions added to it. So I know there's been talk about the start date, but I am, as president of the pool, would ask that this project start no earlier than September 1st, only because, as you could see through where our entrance is, and you know, if you can imagine, we have lots of young families. For them to not be able to drive up to our property, which is landlocked by the entrance of Greenleaf Drive, would be, you know, impossible. They couldn't walk up with toddlers and all the things that they bring. So I would ask that you add a condition that this can't start prior to September 1, so we can just hold the project and the town to that date. So that would be one condition I would ask for. And the other thing is, as far as our fence goes and gate, you know, that is something that protects the wetlands, and I would like to make sure that that is also a condition that be replaced, or work with the pool association to come up with a replacement for that. Again, I trust the process, and I do believe everybody will try to get things done correctly, but I would feel a lot better if it was written into the condition that it was a, you know, must be done. And as you can see, I mean, that area, you know, it really is the gateway to the College Pond Conservation Area, and not only to Oak Knoll's property, but just that 21 acres of town-owned land in general. So I would ask that also a third condition be that some plantings are put back, and again, I understand they can't be put over the easement or the pipe, but I think at the end of the day, for not only the residents on College Pond Road, but the residents on Greenleaf Drive, we don't want to have a look that gives us that kind of high tension wire look where there's just this clear-cut swath of open space, you know, like you would see under high tension wires. And I understand the reasons to clear them, but I have to believe there's some plantings that can be put back either at both ends of it or on the sides of it that would kind of help it blend in. And I know over years, you know, that the vegetation will grow back, and I'm sure they'll be pretty good with the silt fences and things to make sure things aren't invaded. But I think the other point about starting this project after September 1st, and then talking with Georgia about this, you know, with that replication effort that's going to go on over at the Smith School, that soil's not going to want to be out of the ground and sitting and drying out over a summer, right? So I do feel like, you know, the timing of all this kind of really is important to not only the neighbors and but to Oak Knoll Pool as well. And I know there's a neighbor on College Pond Road that's not really in favor of the project, but I will say, as a resident of Greenleaf Drive, and understanding the inner workings of the pump, and that, to me, it's kind of on its last legs. I would support this project, and I do want to see it go forward, but I would ask that, you know, these conditions be put on the project. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a question, with the September 1st, is that to keep the pool open? Is that the concern here?
Well, yeah, so our pool season runs from Memorial Day weekend to the weekend after Labor Day. So our pool will still be open, but my feeling is if this project weren't to start till after Labor Day, you know, we're potentially blocked or inconvenienced for maybe about a week or two of overlap. We have, because we're certified by the town, we have a certified pool operator, and they come in at the end of the season. They have to close up our pools too. So it's not just our, the residents of Danvers or the users of Oak Knoll Pool, but it's also our contractors that help us to close up our facility. So, and as you can imagine, you know, we can't nail them down. Hey, we need you here at this time. They kind of like waiting for the cable guy, right? They'll say, well, we're going to be here on Tuesday between 8 and 5. And I know with the town engineering services and the contract, you know, it's very hard to kind of pinpoint all this. So I think if we just picked after
But
September.
not for nothing, but I don't think that should trump this project, you know, keeping the pool open an extra week or till Labor Day. I mean, I think it's when they're ready to start and everybody says it's time to go, are we supposed to say, whoa, we don't want to?
Well, that's our request, yes.
Okay.
It is. And again, it's not just a few families. I mean, we're talking 55 families from the town of Danvers. So again, it would put a real wrench into our operations, and that's why we're requesting it.
Okay.
Thank you.
thanks. Steve, let me just ask you some follow-up questions on that. I think I heard you say that the project wasn't going to start until the fall.
That's
anyways?
correct, yeah.
All right, so that shouldn't be an issue then. I mean, we'll still can put it in as a condition, but it's
Is
not
that
gonna
an
really
issue,
disrupt
though?
you.
Is it an issue, Steve?
No, that's not an issue.
Oh, okay. Well,
Now, how about the,
smooth.
The only point I would just say about when we come back in the summertime, it's not gonna be a long, not gonna be a long duration, but when we do go to pave Greenleaf, that's probably gonna be maybe a week's worth of disturbance for people coming in and out of the project, and we really wanna be paving kind of midsummer to maybe early fall, but we don't wanna push that too far. We only have a tight window to do that type of work.
that's only one day too, right? And I mean, they can,
Well,
And between the,
Traffic
between the
around
process of
paving.
milling the street, adjusting the castings, and then getting that paving contractor to show up on the day that you want without a rain event or something, it can last a week, but
okay. And how about the gate? Is that within the scope of the project?
we've kind of conversed about the gate. I don't see an issue with, being able to make sure that's a secure location once we're done with our construction work to be able to replace that gate.
Okay, and some plantings to just block the view down that alleyway? I
The
mean,
plantings, I think we gotta talk a little bit more about, because it's, obviously, again, we're not taking any specific property, so it would have to be approved by the landowner to allow us to plant what trees they want back. So depending if it's the conservation land, or if it's the land at the 44 Summer Street, or if it's the College Pond properties, we need just to have that discussion with them about what type of trees they would actually want us to plant back to block any views.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Bradstreet?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. As far as the vegetation, the trees that are going to be cut down, some of them are going to be replaced. Who decides what type of trees? It's not relying on the natural regrowth. Obviously, you can't plant them over the easement for the pipe, and you don't want the corridor effect. Some trees grow tall, some spread out. Some trees shouldn't be used. Who decides, or how is the decision made on which kinds of trees, where they're planted? Just a question.
Steve, could
Thank you.
you elaborate on that?
Danielle,
I can speak to that if you
Danielle, do you
want.
wanna speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Sure. So we worked, CDM Smith worked with our landscape architect, and I also looked at what we saw when we were in the field delineating the wetlands. And we chose plantings for the bordering land subject to flooding compensatory flood storage area, where we're proposing the flood storage to make up for the flood storage that we are impacting. We have chose plantings based on what we've seen out in the field for that area. As far as planting on the easement itself, we are not proposing additional plantings on the easement for the simple reason that it will regenerate naturally over time to a certain caliper, and then it will be maintained to maintain the integrity of the sewer. And as far as the plantings at the replicated wetland go, we again worked with a landscape architect and chose plantings based on what we saw at the adjacent wetland and plantings that we knew would be well suited for that area.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, personally, I'm in favor of this project. I think it's, you know, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Let me just take a step back. The easement that you need to get, the easements, what's your timing on those?
Hope to acquire the easements by the summertime.
Do those need to be approved by the town meeting? Is that
Yes,
gonna,
they need to be approved by town meeting.
is that a routine thing for a town
Yep,
meeting to
correct.
approve easements?
Yep.
So if you don't get it to the summertime though, does that, I mean, the annual town meeting is in May.
Mhm.
Would that impact the start date of this project?
No. If you were to say that town meeting would not vote for the article, is that the question?
Well, no, my understanding is that the easements, which seem to me to be a sensitive area for this project, if they're not approved by the May town meeting, does this push the whole thing back a year until the following town meeting?
Or a fall town meeting, yes. It has to go through a town meeting in order to start the process for taking of the easements, acquiring the
Or
easements.
a special town meeting?
Or a
Are you
special town
thinking
meeting.
opposition to the easements, Peter?
No, but they have to be approved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then once they deal with the landowners and they reach an agreement. it
But
has
are
to be
you
approved.
anticipating opposition to the easements? You're not?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, good. I hope you do. Okay. Any other comments, Mike?
Well, just, I forgot to ask, because I don't know what this means, but sewer lines constructed to minimize inflow and leakage. Could you just expand on what that means, the inflow and leakage?
Yeah, it's a terminology we use, inflow and infiltration. That's when you have an older type sewer system made of clay, where typically roots can infiltrate into the pipe and then allowing water
Oh,
to get inside. We're trying to obviously remove that, because every gallon that we have to send to the South Essex Sewage District is something that we have to pay for. So in order for, we want to reduce that cost, because there's no need to cost for rainwater or groundwater. There's no need to treat that. So we're trying to eliminate that.
what are the pipes gonna be made out of?
PVC.
PVC?
Yep.
Yeah. What they use now?
Okay, all
Yeah.
set? Vanessa, any comments before we go ahead and vote?
No, is that it for public comment, though?
I'm sorry, what'd you ask?
Was that all there was for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, just checking, I anticipated more.
She can't see the audience, so she doesn't see
Oh,
that. It's
okay.
not as full as it was last week, or last meeting.
Oh,
Okay,
Thanks, Georgia.
I guess we're ready to close the hearing, so if someone can make a motion to close the hearing, then we'll vote.
all right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a motion made, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
aye.
Okay, now if we want, you can get a motion to grant the order of conditions, with any conditions added on.
Yeah, I move that we approve the project at Greenleaf College Pond Sewer Upgrade Project, DEP file number 14-1394, with the following order of conditions. That best practices be used in restoring areas that are disturbed, that there be no plantings along the 16-foot easement to the extent that it be allowed to restore itself naturally, and that the area in the easement be regularly maintained to minimize the risk of disruption to the drainage system itself, that the project not begin until on or after September 1st of this year, to allow the association to continue operating their pool, and that to the extent that the applicant can work with abutting homeowners to replace trees or put in plantings that would minimize, at least keep the area looking as natural as possible, that they do so, that the soils that are removed from the wetlands bordering land subject to flooding be reused in another designated area, and that the area that's being replaced be replaced at a ratio of 1.57 to 1 for replication work, that staff be consulted along the way, that the town engineer oversee the wetland, the work involved in the remediation of the displaced soils for the wetlands and for the bordering land subject to flooding.
And the gate.
Oh, yeah, and the gate, the privately owned gate, who's that owned by, sir? Yeah, that the gate, to the extent the gate is replaced, destroyed, or disturbed, that it be put back and it's either replaced or repaired in as good a condition as it now exists. Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, the motion's been made with multiple conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next up is a notice of
very much.
intent for 47 Green Street. There is no DEP number, is that correct?
There is a DEP file number. I'm sure Bill will cover that as well, but it is 141396.
I can just borrow your pen. I thought I was bringing one in, I don't.
Yeah, take it, yeah.
Okay, and the applicants are Kevin Talbot and Brianne Linsky.
Correct.
And Bill is here as your representative?
So long.
Bill Manuel?
Long Bill.
They've got it all? Okay.
I'm Brianne Linsky.
You brought the baby to soften us up, didn't you?
He comes everywhere with me at this point. I'm Brianne Linsky. We bought 47 Green Street. We have 6 children together. So the main reason to buy the property was kind of like a homestead
Did she identify herself?
Yes, you did.
with 3.5 acres for kids to go out and play, and the intent that my father would be coming to live with us as well, you know, as he's getting older. The ability to make a handicap access for him. He is handicapped. He has difficult mobility and everything. So basically, we're putting the addition on because the existing house is quite small. When we bought the house, we didn't know the extent and the limitations of the existing wetlands. That's why we got Bill involved and figured out that we were, you know, the wetlands were behind us and on the side of us as well. But we're hoping that you guys will allow us to make the home larger to fit our family and be able to enjoy it for years to come.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management. Bill Linsky, he didn't get to speak, but he's a little bit, pretty much the star of the show here. The entire home footprint is pretty much designed around his need for mobility in the house. And so the entire lower level of the home is going to be open space as much as can be. And that way there's wheelchair access through the lower level of the home. You can see there is a ramp on that would be the upper side or the eastern side of the home that will allow access from the driveway down into the living quarters for Bill. So everything was pretty much designed with that in mind, not to mention the 6 children that also will be in the house as well. So they have worked very closely once we got on the project and talked about the limitations of the site. They worked very closely with their architect to come up with a plan that meets the criteria of your bylaw and regulations. Some of this work does fall in the no disturb zone and the no build zone. That is unavoidable, and I've given you a fairly extensive alternatives analysis. The architect worked with those design constraints and has come up with a program that works for the family, but is also easily compliant with the requirements and stipulations of your regulations. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to walk you through the site and the project. So Green Street is down here just off the plan, and the property is about 3.5 acres. All of the development is in the front of the lot here. There's the existing home, which is hatched here, this little square, actually has a little porch off the eastern side. There is a barn that's seen better days. There is a shed that has seen better days. And is that temporary container still on the property? Yes. Yeah, so there's a temp container there that's on the property. The driveway, rather extensive driveway, comes into the site, goes all the way back to the barn and the shed. The wetlands affecting this property, actually a lot of them occur on the abutting property, and we were able to get permission from the owner to mark those wetlands that are actually off-site. I started down here by the road, and it runs up sort of in and out. There's a stone wall property line here, but it basically peeks over onto the property, and there's an inlet to a drain pipe that runs underneath the driveway and outlets on the other side. And then the wetlands continue around, and then they begin to trend away from the work site. So we've established the wetlands to the south. The 35-foot no disturb line goes through here, and the 50-foot no build line goes through here. And they're color-coded. The offset lines are color-coded. There's the wetland boundaries colored in green here, and the corresponding offsets are in green. On the opposite side of the driveway where this drain pipe outlets, the property goes again another 100 feet or so off the edge of the plan here. There's another stone wall. And I began marking the wetlands from all the way at the northerly property line. They again come right up to the outlet of this drain pipe, and then curve away again and meander their way back to that northerly stone wall. And so the corresponding offset lines here from the B series wetlands are in purple or magenta. So having said all that, all the works in the buffer zone, here's the no build zone line, here's the no disturb, here's the no build. And you can see that the addition does unavoidably encroach into that zone. We have looked at project alternatives. I've given you, I think, 4 of them that show, well, why can't this be, I knew the first question would be, well, why can't you move it outside of the zones? And very simply, if we were just, imagine this and just take this rectangle and the ramp. I didn't include the ramp on my diagrams, but just imagine if we were to move that over here, a similar size. First of all, architecturally, you can't just plop a rectangle on you cannot do it on a piece of paper, but on the ground and marrying it up to the existing home, it has to make sense. And you can't take this floor layout here and just drop it into this particular, say, this side of the dwelling. Even if you could, it would expand out into the side yard setback, and that would require a zoning variance. And there's also another home, which is right over here, so why would you put your addition directly adjacent to the abutting property? It doesn't make sense. Not only, it also destroys the handicap access because you're putting the addition on the back of the house away from the driveway. We looked at, working with the architect, looking at connecting it here. Again, makes no sense because now you're putting it on the front of the house. The utilities, all the utilities come into the property from the street on this side. It would require rerouting all of the utilities. And again, from a connection point of view, it just doesn't make any sense at all to take this and put it on this side. If you were to take this addition and put it over here, well, that's not helping you either because you are now encroaching into the no build and no disturb zones from the wetland from the other direction, not to mention that you'd be completely blocking all of the access to the back of the property if you were to take that and plop it right here on the driveway. This is a naturally vegetated wetland. This over here, at least the part that's closest to the addition, has been generally created and enhanced by putting this pipe in and then basically, making this. I have a sense that the wetlands probably, this is all naturally vegetated, but they probably have crept uphill somewhat here to the outlet of this pipe because of the presence of that pipe. So this is a man-made or man-altered wetland. This is natural. We felt it was best if you had to encroach into a zone, it was best to encroach into one that was actually sort of disturbed already. So again, everything comes to this being the best connector point for adding onto the house. Now the last alternative was, well, why don't you put something way in the back here? And that was rejected because that basically takes this home and throws it in the dumpster, and that adds about another $500,000 to almost $800,000, depending on the cost of materials, to the cost of the project. And we felt like that was unreasonable to suggest as a viable alternative. So we do require a waiver, and your regulations have some very specific criteria to be able to grant a waiver. I've gone through an extensive discussion, it's some 11 pages worth of discussion that point out and walk you through how this can be approved, how this is consistent with the requirements of your regulations, and how it meets the allowable impact thresholds, and how it also does not have any impact on the interests that are protected by your bylaw. So the first part of the criteria, there's 3 criteria. One is you have to go through the alternatives, avoid and minimize, and I've just had that discussion with you, and I hope it makes sense to you that this, after working with the architect, this is the most logical position to build this addition that provides the needed access from the handicap access from the point of access into the property, from the driveway. So that's overarching concern of all the alternatives. We need that handicap access from the driveway. Your regulations state that the project or the alternative that's selected should have no effect on the interests of the bylaw. And you have about, I think, 12 of them or so, or 13. And I've gone through each interest in the narrative, and I can go through that now if you'd like. But basically, the project, this addition, does not have any impact whatsoever on the interests that your bylaw protects. We have incorporated the appropriate erosion controls, that we make sure that there is no chance of sedimentation or any inadvertent impact to the wetlands. By doing that, we've protected the groundwater interests, we've protected the erosion and sediment control interest. We've protected, there's no public or private water supply, but so that really doesn't even come into play here. There's no water pollution, effect on the water pollution interest. There's no fisheries or shellfish on interests on the site. We don't exceed any wildlife habitat thresholds. So the narrative that I've given you walks you through that this project is entirely consistent with protecting the interests of your bylaw. And then the third criteria is that the project has to improve the natural capacity of the resource areas on the site. And we've accomplished that in a big way. This barn here, I told you it has seen better days, but look where it's positioned. It's right in the no disturb zone and partially in the no build zone. Look at all this pavement that's on the property that's also in the no disturb zone and the no build zone. Likewise, this shed is in the no build zone, partially in the no build zone of the wetlands from the other side, and the storage container that's been there similarly in the no disturb zone and the no build zone. And we're going to remove all of that. That's over 2,200 square feet of impervious surface and structures that are presently in your no build and no disturb zone that we're going to remove in exchange for this small incursion. I forget, the number is just about 7, 8, 15, 8, 9, 95, just about 1,000, just over 1,000 square feet of encroachment into your no build and no disturb zone. So it's better than a 2-to-1. It's a 2.3-to-1 ratio. So we think that's a very significant improvement to the site and meets that criteria of improving the natural capacities of the resource areas on this property. Now, right down here on the plan, I put it on the plan because it's very compelling, the information that it provides. This happens to be a 3.5 acre property. There happens to be quite a bit of no disturb zone and no build zone on the property. Your regulations allow that a project can alter up to 10% of the no disturb zone. And so therefore, you could allow up to 2,700 square feet of alteration, more than 2,700. We're asking for a 627 square foot encroachment. It's only 2.3% of the no disturb zone on the property, well under the 10% threshold that your regulations allow. Similarly, with the no build zone, we have even less encroachment. Obviously, we're getting farther away, farther from the wetlands. And we could impact, according to your regulations, over 7,600 square feet. We're down to 368 square feet. Very minimal encroachment into that zone. And again, it was done with tremendous amount of planning and forethought, not to achieve the project purpose, but also be cognizant of these thresholds and to minimize it as much as possible. So each of these criteria that you set in your regulations, we easily meet them. I've gone through and given you the alternatives, and I've walked you through how each of the interests of your act are not impacted in any way by this proposal. We think it's a well thought out proposal. We have all the erosion control that's necessary on the property. There's no wetland alteration that's going to happen with this project. We hope that the commission looks at it favorably.
Oh, it looks good. Any questions, Mike?
Yes. Could you, Bill, could you put the ratios back up on the...
On the tables?
Thank you, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, are you doing that, or is, George did it?
Not me.
All right. So, I'm looking at, and you're right, you're way below the thresholds. Isn't there some overlap? I mean, you use one number for the 0 to 35 and then the 0 to 50, but to an extent, something in the 0 to 50 could impact both. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
We have to subtract that, whatever we impact here, we subtract it out from here.
That's what I wanted.
So we do not double count.
Yeah, so you're not double counting,
Right.
right? Okay, good. The pavement you're taking up, that's a nice net effect for us, because you're taking up over 2,000 square feet of pavement, is that right?
Over 2,200
And
square feet.
Yeah, is that going to just be allowed to revegetate itself?
We'll need to put down some loam, and we'll stabilize it with a grass cover.
Yeah.
Does
Okay.
Does that figure include the barn square footage too?
Yes.
All right, well, that was a good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
so
for saying
it-
that.
It does require a waiver, right? You
Yeah,
know
it
that.
does, and weren't we going to do a site visit there?
I think we want
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk about.
one
that.
question. You know, when you're going down West Street, you've been down the area, right? If you-
Yes.
If you get down West and then you come down by the river and then you kind of double back and you're on Green Street then, where is that as you're heading?
Left side, about a half a mile up.
On which side?
Left side.
On the left side?
If you're coming back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying, I think I can picture it, yeah.
Michael's Drive.
Oh, yeah, I know it, yeah. Right across. Oh, I know where you are then.
Lawrence has owned it.
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Vanessa, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. So, Bill, at the closest point of the addition, how far are you from the wetland?
Let me get my scale.
And Bill, just a follow-up question. What is the dashed black line?
That's the erosion control.
Okay.
So from the addition, and I'm going to point out from this line here, which is a foundation wall, that is about 22 feet from the wetlands. This feature here is it would be a patio at the ground level and then a deck above, a deck on the first floor and a deck on the second floor. So this deck would be supported by posts, and then this would be assume a concrete ramp, and that concrete would be about 13 feet away from the edge of wetlands. So,
Okay, and what would be, sorry, go ahead.
no question, we're tight right here. I talked about that in my narrative. That's really the one spot that the contractor needs to sit up in his chair and pay attention. But this ramp will have a retaining wall so that we minimize the grading, because we are going to have to get from this elevation down to the lower floor elevation. And so that wall will go in first, and that essentially isolates the rest of the buffer zone from any disturbance after that wall's in.
Okay, and what is between the edge of the wetland and the ramp? Would there be mowed lawn? It seems like they wouldn't just let vegetation grow wild right up to the ramp. Do you think there would be a mowed area back there?
I would probably say a very minimal. Yeah, closer to after the deck and the patio are built, I think we burn up that lawn. But
But beyond that would be lawn and towards the
Yeah, in this area, my guess would be that a small amount of area of lawn to just keep the vegetation off the patio, and then it would be natural beyond that. The commission could specify what they wanted there, a 5-foot clear zone, or, you know, we can talk about that. Sounds like you're gonna wanna visit the property.
Yeah. Where do the cars
Okay.
park now?
Everybody parks in the driveway.
And no garage?
Nope.
And this is not an extended family, an EFLA, extended family living arrangement?
That's correct, it is not.
It is not. Okay, and is it 2 levels or 1?
There'll be the lower level, which will match the current basement. Then there's the first floor that you'd walk into at, you know, front door,
At ground level?
and then a second story.
3 or 4 feet up to, 3 or 4 steps up to
Yeah.
get to ground level.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Vin.
So it shows a lot of pavement being removed. That's that blue shaded area. That's kind of like an L shape.
Yes,
But I do see the driveway seems to go quite a bit past the house. So I was just curious for the purpose of leaving all of that pavement in as well.
yep. There is a beautiful, sort of maintained, let's call it a meadow or a field beyond this driveway. It's partially wooded, partially open. In the future, there will probably be some barn structure back there or garage, and so we're keeping this pavement to allow access to that in the future. Right now, we're most concerned with getting the family a place to live.
Bill, I have an
Okay.
aerial photo if you want me to pull it up, or?
I don't know, does that answer your question, Vanessa?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
With regards to follow up with Vanessa's question, where that proposed structure would go, there's no wetland there that would, you would not be in a no build or no
It would have to be in
disturb?
between the two.
You would, you see there's the limit of the no build from one side, and there's a limit of the no build from the other, so it would be outside of those restrictive zones.
That's what I'm asking.
That's what we want to see. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
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 Okay, Vanessa, are you all set?
Yes.
All right, one quick follow-up, Bill. The drainage pipe that you said more or less created the wetlands on the left-hand side of the drawing, when was that installed?
It's old.
Who knows?
Yeah,
When
who
was the
knows?
property built?
1904, I believe, 1907.
So before our bylaw?
Yeah.
That's when the original, and the house itself now is 24 by 26 feet.
Yeah. Okay, is there anyone in the public has any comments or questions? Seeing none? Okay, I think personally, I'd like to get out there, and I think, Mike, you would too.
Yeah, I would, yes.
Are you guys agreeable to that, to just have us come out and take a peek?
Mm-hmm.
You set that up, Georgia, or?
Yeah, I'll coordinate
Yeah.
with Bill and what works.
And hopefully we can do that fairly quickly, get these guys back here and...
Yes, definitely before the 126 meeting. I was-
Terrific.
Yeah, that would be
Uh,
preferred.
And what's your timeline for construction?
2 months ago,
Yep.
that container has all my clothing and everything in it.
But we won't, that's not enough information, I mean, too much information.
Much.
Okay, so,
Where he's currently living, needs the auditor in the next roughly 6 months.
Okay.
So we want to have construction.
how long do you think this is gonna take?
What do you think it's gonna take? 8 months? 10 months?
6 months turnaround.
You have a professional doing the work? You're not doing it yourself, right?
I'm a licensed electrician,
Yeah.
so we've had people already looking at it, as far as, trying to line up everyone, but foundation can go in dead winter, a little more money, you have to use the mats.
Right.
They're ready to go. They'd prefer to do it now before they pick up again in the spring.
So they're ready to go.
So, Georgia, if you could set something up for a visit, and hopefully we get this back on the agenda for the 26th?
Yep.
Okay, so if someone makes a motion, we'll continue the public hearing until then?
All right, I move we continue the public hearing. Are we going out to the next date? Is that the 26th?
Yeah.
To our next scheduled hearing, January 26th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so hopefully we'll get out to see this property within the next 2 weeks?
Yeah,
Yep.
be great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Georgia, is there any old and new business that we need to discuss?
Yes, just an update. The commission, it's been a little bit of time since they've reviewed a set of minutes, and we have hired a wonderful woman in our office, Emily, who is our administrator for all our regulatory boards, but she has spearheaded the minutes efforts for the Conservation Commission. So she has caught us up on a small backlog. So I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but you will slowly start seeing sets of minutes in your meeting packets, and we'll get those voted on like we used to.
Okay,
And none for today, but that was
but
just
she
more of
just
a...
going through transcripts, through videos.
Yeah,
right?
everything is cataloged on YouTube,
Because,
but she's
We
now
can't remember. I
transcribed.
can't remember from 2
See
weeks
you later,
ago.
Bill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Good
long.
luck. Yeah, bye-bye. Bye, baby.
We'll
All
see you
right,
guys.
that's all. I think we need a motion to close.
Take care.
Okay, if someone can make a motion to adjourn, we will
They're
do so.
leaving you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Oh, you were?
Second the motion.
Yeah.
Mike,
I second.
Wonderful.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Vanessa.